episode of the Second Counter podcast. My name's Paul, and today we have Anthea Allen, who is a IT. Hello. Introduce yourself,
Hello,
please, Anthea.
hello. My name's Anthea Allen, and I'm a critical care sister at St George's Hospital in Tooting, which is southwest London. I've been there for a number of years on the unit.
Perfect. And
Yeah, that's me.
I read on your Instagram, your Sunday's Times best-selling author as well for one of your books. So would you like to talk a bit more?
Yeah. I, I wrote a book. Well, I didn't write a book actually. I wrote a book by accident. One part of my role as the senior sister is that I am the lead for nurse recruitment for critical care, adult critical care at our hospital, and I've been doing that about 15 years now. I went overseas to recruit nurses because we had a huge deficit of nurses just on critical care. Went to Europe, went to Dublin, went to Porto in Portugal, recruited nurses, and sort of took on a bit of a parenting role with those nurses because they were away from home. English was their second language, and I felt a little bit, responsible for them. So I got to know them, and I have an office near the changing room, and I found that there were little knocks on the door and can I speak to you? And maybe there were issues with where they lived, or they had personal issues or home issues. And these nurses would often go home for 2 or 3 days at a time, particularly the European nurses, to visit family, friends, to go for a friend's 21st birthday, or grandma wasn't well, or someone's wedding. And they pop backwards and forwards and often would bring back a treat from me from their various countries of a local food or something. And then so when their Instagram hit, I felt a huge responsibility for them, particularly the Italian and Spanish nurses, because all over the media was the fact that the wave of the coronavirus was much worse there, and their families were very panicked about their sons and daughters working in London during that time. So because I live locally to the hospital and I've lived in the area for over 20 years, I wrote emails just to local people, not medical people, but the contacts through my children's ballet clubs or football clubs or swimming clubs, the local schools that my kids had attended, and neighbours from street parties, no one medical, and just asked, it was sort of as we went into lockdown, if anyone had any time to make some cake and biscuits and drop them on my doorstep. And I put my phone number and my address so that these could be delivered. And very quickly, we would have cake and biscuits, and the local shop heard, so brought things round. And then the emails went to local primary schools mostly and a secondary school, and the head had forwarded them to other parents. And this just became a huge thing that organically happened, and I had an influx of food, biscuits, meals. I mean, even some of the hotels in London, the major chains got involved. We've got fridges full of butter, sugar, eggs. Can we make something for you? One of the people from MasterChef lived locally, so cooked some things and came in. So it just became a huge thing. And then I'd write an email to say thank you, and then I had more. And then I got to the point where I was having more replies and more responses to the emails than I was actually sending emails. It's sort of, I was a bit slow for it to occur to me they were being forwarded. And a local parent who I knew through the school set up a PayPal just giving fund, and people would donate money. And with the money, a group of people sort of banded together because everyone was off work, working from home. And they would go around local restaurants who were furloughed to be able to order a certain amount of food so they could still be furloughed but would keep in business. And we'd go to pizza restaurants and various restaurants in the area. And the food started getting healthier and healthier because for quite a while we were eating a lot of cake and biscuits, and the nurses were telling me it was my fault they were gaining weight. But obviously all this was coming in. We weren't paying. I think they made £400,000 in the end in this PayPal account. A few celebrities contribute to that. I was then invited to go on Good Morning Britain and various other LBC, various other radio stations and television. And I would tell my story, and the thing escalated, and it was great. And I kept doing it because it was bringing in a lot of support for our team. And it was quite something to work in that environment during the pandemic. You know, Yeah, we were three intensive care units. I'd done all the courses you could as a critical care nurse. I was confident being in charge. I was confident taking a patient. I'd got to the point in my career I felt I could look through after any single patient that came through the
Mm.
door, no matter what was wrong with them. And then everything just exploded, and work was like a different place overnight. And we escalated to 7 different environments. We were creating critical care where it wasn't supposed to be. We were in theatres, the endoscopy, on various wards. It was awful, and I felt terrible, and I was very concerned about how it was for my team and all the young
I
nurses
can
that I
imagine as
had
well,
recruited.
all the young nurses you had working
And
are overseas nurses as well, so they're away from home during this awful pandemic. So I can imagine
yeah,
it's
it
not.
was terrible. It was terrible for them, and there was a lot of
Of
crying.
course,
Even
yeah.
I was crying. I've never cried so much in my life as I cried during that time. And I remember one particular day, right at the beginning, I was working in an office capacity, and because we were trying to recruit people on a temporary basis to help people from other areas, or people coming in from the community, we had dental nurses, nurses from other areas, doctors, medical students, anyone who could help or was um, relocated to that area to help us. And taking into consideration critical care is usually a one nurse to one patient. That's
Yeah.
roughly how it works. On occasion, you can have two patients if their needs are less. Um, and so we were often one critical care nurse to 4 or 5 patients, and these patients were really sick with something unknown, and we were wearing PPE. And if you remember, it was really hot, and it was all just such a dreadful environment. And I went round one day at the beginning, and I didn't know what to do, and I didn't really recognise most of the people
Yeah, of
because
course.
we're all in visors. At the beginning, we were, covered up in visors. You couldn't see anyone. But but I was very much in a role of supportive, caring. One of the nurses started calling me Mama Anthea, and I'm the mother. And a few of them sort of texting, Mum, are you around today? Or Hi, Mother, did you have a good weekend? This is still going on now after the pandemic. And I went round one day just blowing kisses through the window. I didn't know who I was blowing kisses to, but they were medical people who worked in the hospital that I wanted to support. And one evening, one of the Italian nurses texted me and she said, Thank you for sending flying kisses. You don't know how much this means to us. And I just thought, what else can I do? And this, with the emails and everything. So each day I would make sure there was food, biscuits, treats, and communicating with my friends locally. And because I lived locally, people contacted me and said, what can we do? What can we bring? And they would turn up with food, and we ended up getting 3 meals a day. It was
Wow.
quite extraordinary how it happened, and the support we got, to a point where the nurses were messaging me and say, what's for lunch today? And it happened, and it kept happening, so I kept writing. And then a ghostwriter contacted me and he said, I write usually the cookery books. A friend had forwarded your emails, and I think people during that time were setting up WhatsApp groups for their
Yeah.
street or their area or family groups, and my emails were being put on this, and then people were like, what can we do? And if somebody didn't cook or didn't have the ability to cook, would send in lots of hand cream or all sorts of various things. um, and so the emails just kept going. I would keep sending them, and then the writer said to me, these need to be published. And my initial reaction was, no, 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 no. I was in the bottom set for English
Mm.
at school. I can't write. I can talk and chat, but I can't write. And I said no. But he kept ringing me. And I remember there was one particular day I was in the garden. It was a beautiful day, and he rang me, and I was just on the edge myself. And I mean, I have an amazing family, and my partner just took over the home. And during which time, I must say, my daughter was at university in
Mm.
Bristol and had come home, and being the sort of person she is, she was completely up to date with all her assignments, didn't know what to do. So I recruited her to come and help answer the phone, run around with notes, do all sorts of amazing things. She ended up working
In
with
the
us for
hospital.
6 months, which was incredible.
Wow.
In the hospital on critical care and my department helping. She was amazing, just doing anything. One of her things that she sort of got herself into was holding iPads over patients so they could communicate with their
Of course,
families,
yeah.
because of course we had no visitors, or looking for lost glasses and lost dentures. Patients would come into the emergency department. Staff didn't have
Yeah.
time to be worrying about patients' properties. So she would go down, find out the lost phone, the lost charger, the lost dentures, the lost teeth, and bring them back to the right person. So she got into the whole wearing PPE. So that was another angle. So I'd write about my daughter because I'd think about what I could write, because every time I wrote, we got more donations of money and the money we spent on meals for the nurses. And then I'd got to my wit's end, and this ghostwriter rang me just at that moment, and he had such a lovely voice, one of those voices you love to listen to. He's a good friend now. And he said, I need to publish it. And I thought, first of all, the hospital wouldn't like it. And anyway, long story short, hospital were okay. And yes, I published it. And within moments, it was a Sunday Times bestseller. I had a bit of an imposter syndrome. It seemed a bit strange. But anyway, and from that, my daughter set up an Instagram. And the Instagram began to tell the story of nurses in the pandemic, because I always feel that it's always about the doctors. Everything's about doctors. Don't get me wrong, I love the doctors. We work with some amazing doctors, but I agree, it's about the nurses as well, and it is for me. And I use my Instagram to be a platform for celebrating nurses. And I used it during the time of the strike to try and build us up. And now I've got to the point where I find the general public think intensive care is about doctors. That's it. So now they know it's about nurses and physiotherapists and occupational therapists and radiologists and clerical staff who do all the background, and the porters and all sorts of people that work multidisciplinary team, the dietitian, speech and language, everybody, because every single patient who comes in through injury or illness or whatever has their own needs, and the various specialists. You might need the orthopedic team, you might need the urology team, you might need the obstetrics team, gynecology, neuro, or each patient has their needs. And there's a whole heap of people that hold up the big ship of the NHS. And so start the Instagram. I thought it was a momentarily thing, and it kept going, and I got more followers. And in fact, my sister volunteers in Calais, with the refugees, and working there 1 week a month. And she was working with a nurse recently who told her she looked like someone she knew who'd written a book. It was me, so I'm the sister. So it seems to have spread a long way. And I find if I go around the wards in the hospitals to discharge a patient or something, or just to borrow something, people are like, hello, Anthea. And I'm like, I don't know you. Oh, I follow you on Instagram, or I read your book. So it's a bit strange, but it's lovely, and I don't know how long it'll last. As long as it's positive and celebratory of our staff and our team in the hospital, then that's lovely.
The fact that you are just sharing that side of everything and showing that it is just nurses. It's not just doctors, it's nurses, it's all this stuff. Like I follow your Instagram, and every day the staff look wonderful, everyone's smiling, and it brings that team together. It's lovely to see.
They are wonderful. And I always say, well, I recruit them. So, because most of our staff are homegrown. They're people who we recruit as junior Band 5 nurses. They've never done intensive care before. We're interested. We support them. We have a really amazing education team who are very dynamic. You might see my last post was about them. Very dynamic in helping people learn in a really practical, fun way. And we do a lot of eating, particularly since the pandemic. We have celebrate every festival, Chinese New Year, Ramadan. There's always an excuse to eat, and it connects people. And I think the team who come in and feel very supported and connected as they start, then they welcome the next group, and then people slowly progress. They do their courses, they get promoted to Band 6 after an interview, and so on and so forth. So many of our senior Band 7s who run the unit step foot onto that unit brand new 1 point. So yeah, we work with a lovely team. And, obviously I'm a nurse and I work with the nurses, but we've got really everybody from cleaner right through to our head of nursing.
Going back to the band, really the Band 5, so yourself, what got you into nursing? How did you begin your nursing career?
Well, I always wanted to be a nurse right from a little girl. My mum was a nurse. She worked in A&E, and I used to listen. I remember she did night shifts, and I would wait for her to come home and tell these stories, and I would love that. I think both of us are storytellers. And I finished school, travelled, and then I was quite late going into nursing. And then when I was in nursing, I wanted to go into A&E or ED, emergency department as it's called now. And that was my focus. I knew that before specialising, I had to do a year. And so I trained at St George's Hospital. I mean, I actually walked into St George's Hospital, I think, in early 91 for my interview. And I just thought, I'm going to work here. And I had offers at other hospitals, but something drew me to St George's. And I've never left it, really, apart from done a few various jobs within the hospital. I was part of the outreach team and a couple of bouts of maternity leave, but I've never gone because I love it. Why leave? So yes, my plan was after a year of not specialising, for like a foundation after qualifying, like go to ED, and that never happened because when I'd been qualified almost a year, I transferred a patient from the endoscopy department back to the ward. It was the same day they were refurbishing the lift lobby, so it was a much longer route, and the patient had a cardiac arrest in the corridor on the same level as intensive care. And I'd never set foot in intensive care, I'd never been there as a student. And I was with a porter and a receptionist and scared and doing CPR on a trolley and thought, let's go to ITU. It's over there. Walked through the door and they saw me and just welcomed me in. And they were so slick and fast and incredible. It was so impressive. And I found the adrenaline from it. And I'd been out with the ambulance teams. I'd worked in resus. I'd done quite a lot of, been on the edge of some dramatic things that I found very exciting. But this was quite scary because I was the only medical person in the situation and you're trained to do these things. And it was incredible how it just came back to me immediately. And I was thinking, I've got to go through this. And I was going through the ABC algorithm in my head. But I'd only been qualified a year. Anyway, very impressed.
Being on a corridor as well with no ward staff, nothing. It could be.
And this is before mobile phones or anything. And there were no phones on the corridor. Yes, there are now since that event. After that, they put them in. So I went handed over to the doctor, went back up to the ward, who were like, where have you been? You've been gone ages. Got the family, took them down. And I remember the consultant on intensive care had explained everything that happened, and then I talked to the family, and then the consultant had been assessing the patient and was very succinct in explaining the whole situation to his wife and family. And I went home completely full of adrenaline and couldn't sleep all night. I was back at work I was on a medical ward the next day. So I went in a bit early into the intensive care unit and the bed was empty that he'd been in, and I just felt this sinking feeling in my chest. And then saw one of the nurses. And she said, we moved him to the side room because he couldn't sleep. And I went in, I remember that that was 30 years ago. I still remember him and his name. And he was sitting up in bed eating cornflakes. Wow. And he was fine. And one of the nurses said that must have been really scary. And I said, it was really scary, but now I know it's okay. It was actually quite exciting. So she said, what are you doing on Monday? And I wasn't doing anything. She'd come for an interview. I think you'll fit in well here. That was it. Got the job, never went to the accident emergency department apart from to retrieve a patient or help, but no, that was me. And I remember on my first day I started, which was January 96, 100 years ago, I was there half an hour and I thought, this is it. I love this. This is where I want to be. This is everything. So that was it. Yeah, learned, studied, and there are still a few nurses who are there now. My work wife, I call her, she was my mentor when I started. Wow. And she's still there now. It's great. Really love working with her. And, between us, we've got 60 years ITU experience.
So how many staff nurses are there in the ICU? Because I know with ICU, when I've worked, there's only a handful. So how many, is that yours?
Well, we've got 18 beds on our department. So in our department, I think there's GPX guidelines of specific guidelines about how many nurses to patients, but you've permanently got people a lot of people on maternity leave, secondments and various things. We have 18 patients. I can't remember. It's about 100, probably just over, because you're covering night shifts, day shifts. But then you've got all the other, the education team. We have a big research team. We have matrons who are sort of part of running the whole. There's a whole lot goes on to keep the big ship afloat. And then, of course, I cover the other 2 units as far as recruitment's concerned. And then some of our nurses rotate to get experience on different units, or may go for a shift because they're short in one area. Because it all depends how many beds you've got. If you've got 5 empty beds, nurses are encouraged to take that as a day off or swap around. Or you've got absolutely jammed full and people waiting to be admitted.
So
no day is the same.
What I was going to say, so recruitment-wise, I know at the ICU where I work or have worked, you need some background experience first before you can work on an ICU ward as a nurse. How did it work for you? Was you able to just go straight there, or did you have to go and work somewhere else first for a couple of years? When you recruit new nurses?
So from qualifying, So when I did it, it was still the same. You qualify, you go and work on the wards for a year. They encourage you to have acute experience. We don't take anyone just from qualifying. It's too overwhelming. And I think working on a ward is really important. There's nothing like being in charge, 4 a.m., thinking on your feet. You learn to think in a certain way, taking that responsibility, and then go to a more specialist area. So our band 5 nurses, we hold an assessment centre, which is just for critical care. Before we used to hold them and we would hopefully get a few nurses. Now we're the opposite, and particularly since the Instagram a bit, people contact me via Instagram and say, I want to come and work in your department. So we may have 8 jobs and have lots of people apply. And I put the advertisement once on Instagram and I got about 300 applicants. I mean, not all of them were nurses, but so now we get people who have got at least a year's experience working on a general ward. We take them for a year. And then when they join us, they have a set day on each unit. So we might have 5 or 6 for each unit come together. They might have 15 people, and the practice education teams between the 3 units get together and devise. And there's a foundation course where the nurses are supernumerary for 4 weeks, and they have education about the devices we use, about arterial blood gases, some anatomy and physiology. So we can train them in our way and just help them gain skills and knowledge about looking after critically ill patients. And then they work with a mentor, supernumerary, being taught the practical things that we do, learning about the machinery, and then we let them loose with the patient, working next to senior staff or more senior, who our band 6 nurses are unbelievable. They're bread and butter of our unit because they look after the patients and they teach and mentor at the same time. And not just the new students, we have student nurses, ICU nurses, paramedics, students, midwifery students, or midwives, all sorts of students who come up. So we're very good at teaching them and working with them. So the foundation course, they have sets of competencies to fill out. And then once they got through those competencies and completed them and had a period of experience and consolidating all of that, they can apply for the critical care course. So we don't take anyone straight from qualifying. You couldn't. It's overwhelming. And apparently they did do it for a while they were finding it hard to recruit, and people left.
So going back to, we spoke about COVID before, how do you think ICU particular has changed a lot because of what happened during COVID, like strategy-wise or things that you do differently now? Do you think anything's changed, or do you think it's stayed the exact same?
The connection between the team has changed. We're much more...
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, the teamwork was outstanding in COVID for us where we work. I don't know how it was in other departments. That has remained. And the people who worked through the pandemic, who are still there, are very connected. We're like a family. And interestingly, several people who left came back because it is a really good team. If we have to prone a patient, we know how to do it and we can get organised. I think we were reminded, when I first started in ITU, we used to prone a lot and then it went out of fashion. There are various things that have changed. Also, we've got a bit of a can-do attitude now. I think they learned about particular medications and various processes and different machinery and things, but more informally, I think
the team group,
the teamwork is what is the most.
And by the sounds of it, it does sound like you've had a very big impact on that team with what you did during COVID. It is remarkable what by the sounds of it, what you've done for that team has been incredible.
Well, it just sort of happened. That was what was interesting. It's nice because it means that the nurses feel supported, and when you feel supported, and I really feel that leadership in nursing particularly should be done with the heart. And I think everyone's got their backstory. I remember there was a nurse who was late for work every single day, and our then matron, this was years ago, said to me, "Come on, Anthea, she's in your team, can you talk to her? She's late every shift, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, sometimes half an hour." She was a good nurse and was effective while she was there. She was quite quiet, but she was always late. And so I thought, come on, if I'm going into a senior job, as a senior role, I think I was a senior staff nurse then, I need to be able to communicate. And no one likes confrontation of any sort. So I did all the things I knew you should do: private environment, ask her how she was, not be confrontational, be kind. And her response was, "I'm so sorry. The problem is my husband has MS. I get him out of bed and then I have to wait for the carer to come, and the carer has to wait for her mum to come to look after her children, and is often late because she then has to help her husband." And there was a whole heap going on for this nurse to get her to work, to care for other people, to then leave her shift to go home and care again for her husband. And I thought, you know what, if she's 10 minutes late, does it matter, really? And I think I remember learning, everyone's got a backstory. We are there for our jobs to earn a salary, to give us the life we want as much as is possible. We're not valued, we're not appreciated, the government have no clue what we do. The fact that we have to fight for a pay rise after everything we did. Even within the hospital, I sometimes think the people at the top, they weren't there in COVID. They were working from home. They don't really get it, I don't think. And I think you need to look after them, and you need to care for them. You need to nurture them. And if you look after staff, I think they look after patients. And we have very supportive, it isn't just me. I do a certain amount, but our matrons are very supportive and kind. And, we've had nurses who've had awful family tragedies, as I said before, many of them for other countries, and they might get a phone call on duty that their mum has died suddenly or something. It's horrendous. Everything, there's no question of whether you can't drop everything and go home. Everyone will be, go, leave the shift now, do what you need to do. They have a very good return to work policy if you've been on long-term sick or maternity leave, like a catching up day. You just come in for a day before you even come back, just to get a good feel. So I think the whole of our department is very supportive with staff. I did the whole touchy-feely parenting thing over COVID, but I think, we don't have any vacancies at the moment, and we've had to cancel our Band 5 assessment centres. And when we recruit, and it's been within internal. We've had Band 5s leave to travel. No one really leaves because they're unhappy. People leave to travel or get promotions somewhere else, or to get a different type of job using their ICU skills. Maybe it's a clinical nurse specialist. So the last few times we've recruited, like for Band 6, it's been the internal Band 5s who've been promoted. But we don't at the moment. I know there's a recruitment freeze at the moment within the NHS, but we don't. We're 100%
so you found
established. We don't have any vacancies, and I get.
Job, do you very rarely leave? Do you enjoy the team that much?
They don't. People have to leave for financial reasons, for family reasons. It's very difficult because London hospitals don't provide parking for staff, which is crazy. That should happen. And if they you can apply for a permit within the hospital, you might not get it. And then those nurses have to leave really early in the morning to get the place. And there's been a couple of nurses we've had, a friend of mine, she lives in Guildford, doesn't have a parking permit. There's no train directly from where she lives. To be at work as a senior nurse, she needs to be there about 7 a.m. to take handover. She can't, takes her an hour, 40 minutes to drive. So the 40 minutes to drive and then leaving a bit early, because everyone leaves early to get a parking place. It's not possible. In the pandemic, I wrote to the local council and asked if we can have a parking exemption for that period, because nothing was happening. People were going to work, and we got them. So it was great. So many of us could drive and do street parking. And I mean, I don't understand why things like that can't be done permanently. No, it don't need to be free. Nurses
No,
don't mind
but
paying for
if it's
parking,
there, if
a
it's an
reasonable
option, if it
amount.
was an option
Yeah,
during COVID, why isn't it an
yeah.
option now? Like, I agree.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it should be. I mean, it's madness. We want to keep our staff. The government apparently can't afford to give us much of a pay rise for the outstanding and phenomenal job that we do. So why not give us free food in the canteen? Give us
Just
subsidised parking.
something, yeah.
I don't know. Something, yeah. Because if you look after nurses, if our nurses who apply from out of London, because many nurses it's very difficult for them to live in London, especially if they've got family. You can't
No.
buy anywhere. You can be on a good salary and not afford to buy somewhere. And our nurses' accommodation was sold off privately, so there's only a certain amount available now, run by an outside company. So if you apply to live in the nurses' accommodation, which is not really nurses' accommodation, you might get a place, but not if you're a single mum or you've got married with small children. And there are flats available because a certain amount goes to outside of the medical profession. But I think subsidised accommodation, subsidised parking, subsidised meals in the canteen should be a note. I think that. I may be missing
I
something
agree
out.
as
I'm not a
well. I
manager in the
agree
hospital, so
completely.
I don't know. I'm missing something out. So if you look after nurses, they'll look after the patients.
Well, it's been lovely speaking to you, Anthea. We're coming up to the end now. Where can people find your Instagram? What's the name of the channel?
So the title of my book is Life, Death and Biscuits because that's what it was, and the Instagram is just one
And where
word:
can we
Life,
find the
Death,
book to
Biscuits.
buy?
And the book, Amazon. It was in Asda for a while. It was all over the place for a short period, but now I just think I did find it in a bookshop the
Well, it's
other
been
day.
lovely
But
speaking to you. Thank you for
yeah,
coming on.
yeah,
Perfect.
you're welcome.
So I've stopped